Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Spotts, VP of IT, Corporate IT for Catalent. I'm also the technical solution owner for MES, and we're doing something we call Digital Plant, which is, it's about putting digitization in place within our labs and our manufacturing spaces for our global network.
I'm Chuck MINA. I'm also with Catalent. I am our global automation engineering lead, but I function as our global business owner for the MES program.
Great. So we're here to share with you today a little bit of our experience that we've had with MES. We're a contract development and manufacturing organization. And for those of you that haven't worked in that space, things move very fast. So the expectation is that you deliver results quickly and confidently. So we were presented some challenges that we're going to walk through with you today. But first, we'll start with a little bit of an overview of where we see our industry going in terms of pharma, biopharma, but then where does that actually lead to in terms of what's required from an MES in the current state. But first, we wanted to share a little bit of an overview of what Catalent is. Who is Catalent? So we have a brief video to share with you. Chuck, you want to lead this off?
Yeah, so as that video alluded to, Catalent touches a lot of different parts of the industry. We have consumer health, we have oral solid dosage, biologics, and cell and gene therapy. And on top of that, we're a contract manufacturer, so there's an extra wrinkle there that some companies it's an extra wrinkle for us. So we are a little bit of a microcosm of the industry, I think, and as we went down this journey of trying to digitize some of our plants, there's some difficulty, challenges, some inertia to putting these projects in place that I think are maybe not unique to us. I think they're typical in the industry. And I think if we take a step back, we can explain a little bit of why we see that inertia to put into these MES projects in place. If you've been around for a little while, right, you know the pharmaceutical industry has shifted significantly in the last 15, 20 years, say. Historically, our industry was focused on, yes, we moved to more biologics, but in particular, it was mass market pharmaceuticals, right? So you think back, 20, 25 years, we're focused on, we're in like the Lipitor era, the Prozac era, the really big products that go to as many people as possible, large batches, invest heavily in a facility that's going to make that. This leads to large-scale production of a plant that maybe has a long timeline, and you have time to maybe optimize your process, and you're going to do a lot of that in-house. You're going to have large in-house projects to build these facilities. You come to today, yes, these kind of projects still exist. Yes, mass market products still exist, but there's a much more of a mix of products out there. Some of the most innovative products are very small scale, they're personalized or targeted biologics and cell and gene therapies. More of those biologics formats. And the timeline to create those manufacturing processes is much smaller, right? We rely on single-use systems. We rely on benchtop processes, so you can take a room, put a process in there, and in a few months you might be making something you weren't before. So that compresses that timeline from the day you have a product identified in late clinical to the day you're producing it. Might only be a few months instead of 18 or 24 months now. What that shift leads to, I believe, is that we can see that the landscape of what an MES product is and why so many sites feel that inertia to be able to start up and the fear of having those difficult MES installations is that the MES deployment and the MES industry is not necessarily in line with where the pharmaceutical industry is today. So you look at what a MES product looked like historically. It's going to require a significant upfront investment. It's going to require heavy licensure cost. It's going to require infrastructure cost. It's going to require personnel to maintain that infrastructure, which is harder and harder to maintain on sites, especially as we centralize our IT teams. That requirements and definition phase could be an 18 to 24-month process. I don't think that's terribly uncommon for MES installations. And you're gonna use that project timeline, right? Your MES timeline would align with that project timeline of this large facility startup that takes a long time, that requires buying big tanks that have long lead times. Well, guess what? You can use that time to optimize your process and make sure your MES product is meeting your needs, and you can take the time to integrate to these large other computer systems that support your facility. Go ahead. So the problem today, though, is we look at this, there's kind of a dichotomy in where the industry is now and where these MES products are. I think that a lot of these products really got started prior to or maybe during this shift that I described. So that legacy MES project, again, took a while, had that heavy upfront cost. You compare that to the industry today, and we are much more in need of flexibility. There's more of an emphasis on that than there used to be. So we need something that is able to support a rapidly changing product portfolio of many different kinds of processes and rely less on experts from the vendor or experts from external consultants we're bringing in, something we want to be able to run in-house. The unfortunate result of this is that the most innovative and groundbreaking products that exist today, the targeted, personalized therapies that are curing, unmet diseases that there was no cure for just a few months ago, frequently they are being manufactured with the least efficient support systems. That's where we're ending up as an industry. So that's a failure that we need to confront. Go ahead, you can go to the next one. What does that mean? So this is where Catalent, realized for our biologic sites, for our cell and gene therapy sites, we wanted to do something a little bit differently. We needed to be more nimble and more agile. We have too many processes that come online too quickly to follow the traditional approaches, and we need something that is quick to start up, which points us to something cloud-based. We need something that is relatively inexpensive, at least to get started in, which, yes, puts us to a subscription model, which we understand comes with pros and cons, but it gets us moving quickly. We need something modular that we can start up with just what makes sense to one site, even if it's just a few batch records, and something that we can maintain and run internally. And I would also point out, go ahead, you can go to the last slide. And if some of those concepts I talked about resonate with anybody, for those of you who are on the Bioforum MES of the Future team, take a look. These QR codes link you to our papers. But this whole idea of the MES needing to modernize for the industry has been tackled by a Bioforum work stream with a few papers here. So you can get them here or look them up on the Bioforum website. So with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Great. Thanks, Chuck. So as you heard, we have this challenge that we have to go after. And from our business standpoint, we were approached and we started a massive growing business within the biologics segment. So roughly half of our business today is half biologics, half pharma consumer health. The combination of that, we already had some MES capabilities within the pharma consumer health side. So we have PASX. So we have experience, we have a team, it's globally managed. But on the bio side, it was growing so fast, and we were actually acquiring additional sites and new types of modalities. So we brought in cell and gene therapy, mRNA, and a few others that are emerging as well. And with this growth, we realized that none of these sites have MES in them today. So when the business recognized that and the need for the flexibility that was required and to be responsive to our clients, we really had to move quickly. So we started evaluating solutions. We fortunately were already working with Apprentice within our Madison facility. They were doing basically a lighthouse concept of identifying what the opportunity was to leverage that, and we were seeing really good, promising results. So we got engaged with the site, and they love it when corporate shows up and says, "Hey, what are you doing? And so we they were really open and sharing, and it was actually really exciting and refreshing to see like this new capability that's come about. So the business said, hey, we want that, and we want that across the network. We want 6 sites in 6 months. And by the way, you got limited resources and capital. So, but get it done. So that was the challenge that was thrown in front of us. So we took the route of, hey, then we're going to adopt Apprentice, and we're going to take this journey. We saw, the key differentiators for us was really around the ability of getting the records done quickly. So we took a paper on glass type of approach. The ability to deploy the environments through a SaaS model. I've worked in companies where we had 4 environments per site, and we had 28 sites, and that was a bear to manage. So not having to manage that component anymore, but there's a risk with that, right? And we're extremely risk adverse in this realm, right? I mean, because the weight of what's being asked to be accomplished, you realize you can shut down the entire business, right? So, and it's the same thing with ERP, with automation projects. I think they all kind of carry some of that weight. This doesn't have the complexity of an ERP, but it certainly has that risk of, if we don't get this right, we're going to cause major disruption that will be material to our business that would really impact us. The other piece was around an improved digital user experience. So we had operators coming in every day with binders of paper, just going through them. And that process, and they got a phone in their pockets that's more capable than like all the manual systems that surround them. The amount of paper that we manage on the shop floor is tremendous. The other piece that we struggle with is, particularly in the biotech realm, is there's all this. First of all, it's a sterile environment, right? So you got clean rules. You don't want things coming in and out of the suites if possible. That burden carries with our people as well. But the other piece of it is, how do we try to make that a much better experience for them, knowing that their expectations of what they do on a daily basis is more digital based, right? So the introduction of tablets, the ability to capture information real time, the ability for us to start leveraging the complexity of setup of this equipment. So when you start getting into these smaller scale processes that are flexible, there's a lot of equipment that is single use. And you've got to string all these things together with massive connections. We're running bioreactors with multiple feeds. And you have to get that right. You have to get it right the first time, otherwise you risk losing the batch. And that risk falls on us. It's not our customer's fault. So we bear the cost of any failed batches in those situations. So we really needed to find something that was going to meet those requirements. Apprentice is the route that we took, and we're going to share a little bit of that experience with you. So first, from an approach standpoint, these are really hard to see. So from a site standpoint, look, this is not rocket science, right? Everybody wants a champion for change, right? But what we did is we went to the sites and we said, we really want someone that's vested in your site. We have talent management processes, so give us your best talent. We want your best talent to help drive this change. It's an opportunity for that talent to shine or fail potentially, but we'll be around them to support them and help them. It really generated some good results in some cases. Some cases it was just okay. But it was kind of an exciting experience and refreshing way to go into a site and say, not only do we need resources, we want your best resources because we got to get this right. The other thing that we did, I say, is a little bit different is we leveraged the existing authors and we upskilled them. So, typically when you do this, you either bring in a partner that brings the skill set. We actually already had a COE that was relatively lean, but we had capability of people knew how to author batch records within PASX. So that contributed to the work effort. But partnering with Apprentice, their ability to come in and provide that expertise when we needed it, the deep knowledge and the technology, and how to apply that to certain complex situations, that was fantastic. Great experience. The system doesn't always do what you want it to do though, right? So that's the other challenge of, how do you got these flexible building blocks, and how do you tie them all together in order to come up with a comprehensive solution to deal with the complexity within your manufacturing? We found that there were things that maybe didn't work as we expected, and we had a great partner that responded to us and worked with us to improve those experiences. So the responsiveness, the turnaround, the ability to deliver and improve that experience while managing many other customers was much appreciated. But the ability that we could basically get those people in the site built up and trained was a big factor. So global SOPs and qualification approach. Again, nothing new here, right? Everybody's been doing this. The SOPs become important. It's not just the administration of the system, but it's the change management of the system. As soon as we started working with multiple sites, they all came up with their different approaches because there's flexibility of how you would promote things between dev to val to production. And can you make changes in production? Yeah, you can. But should you? So you have to think through all the risks associated with that and version numbering and control and management of that. We should be doing it one way as a company. So that was really important learning for us, was come up with one approach in terms of how you do change management on your recipes. The approach we took of our site was seeding a site. So it wasn't going into a site and going MES end to end everywhere. It was going into the site and teaching them how to fish. So the ability to work with them, bring in the expertise, help them learn and develop, but then let them run on their own for a bit. So give them some distance, let them run. They still fall, they skin their knees, they have challenges, they scream, but we come back and we help them. And in today's environment, even though we're dealing with global locations, we can get on the phone pretty much any hour, and we have. The other piece was, paper on glass versus it should be review by exception. But this is a scope discussion, right? So if you want review by exception day one, I think everybody wants that. That's the holy grail, right? But the journey to get there is very, very time consuming and difficult. So you not only need to understand the technology, you need to know the process. And you need to make decisions relative to the process. And that's very difficult. It's even harder for us because these processes are not ours. As a CDMO, we're using someone else's process. We tech transfer it in. We have people that gain knowledge in it and understanding, but we're not the experts on it. So for us, that became really important, but also we could move very quickly. And then some would argue, well, you don't get all the benefits of an MES if you do paper on glass. Well, we'll share with you more about that. From a technology standpoint, we wanted no code, no customizations, because somebody's got to maintain and support that. So I've been in many projects. I was talking to some folks, and I've been related to the MES industry for 30 years now, and just seeing the progression of where we started and where we're at now. But the ability to get to a point where we can be no code, no customization, but yet some flexibility that you can do what you need to do is a nice place to be. Of course, I talked about the tablets, the capabilities there. It also makes you think about, though, again, you need guidelines and policy around how to use a camera, how do you take video within a GMP suite. Those are things that have to be thought out up front and needs to be a part of the project and implementation. The other piece, the decision we made, again, to go quickly, no integration. And of course, everyone's like, no ERP integration, like that's foundational, that's table stakes. Actually, it's not. Like, you can actually attain a lot of benefit by pausing on that and say, let's get the capability of just digitization of the records within the space, and then from there, you can actually build out and add on to it. It's very much taken an agile approach. You can kind of see where we're going, right? So we are continuously driving and improving the records after we implement them. Okay, we're running short on time. So let me just kind of run through. This is my last slide. Just want to run through what the results are. So we deployed 6 sites, but it took 9 months. That was terrible. No, actually, it was awesome. Right? I mean, like, think about it. Like, from nothing, it took us a while to get resources going at the sites. This was a top-down effort, so the sites were still trying to figure out, like, we're going to do what? And then we come in like, where's the team? Where's your best talent? They weren't ready to go. So we did have some fumbles with that and just getting up and running. And then, of course, the things you run into, the guidelines, the policies, the SOPs, deciding the scope on those, getting people engaged that can deliver that. Most of that was done internally for us. But the big benefit we saw was GDP. So improvements in good documentation practices. If you look through whatever your CAPA system is, and you look at how many of those types of errors people deal with that eventually become a CAPA, is pretty significant. But then the things that never become a CAPA, that becomes just the grind that occurs between manufacturing and QA on a daily basis, that requires a lot of people to support that, that is where we saw the big benefit, is that made their life so much easier. The collaboration of workflow between the people, but then also the ability for us to externally extend that workflow to our clients as well. Because we've got another person in this review cycle, so we want to give them the same experience that we have internally as they, versus in the past, we would scan executed batch records and send them to them and say, all right, let us know how it goes. Imagine all the handwriting on an 800-page batch record for a biotech process. It's tremendous. Want to get to the lessons learned. So eyes wide open on technology. Like, we knew going into this, we were dealing with a new technology. Of course, there's going to be bumps in the road and figuring out how to get it done. But as long as you have a partner that's in it to actually do it with you, it all works out. But you had to keep reminding people, because everybody would go, well, why is this happening? You know, why are we having some of these challenges? And it's like, guys, we made a decision to adopt this technology. We're already way ahead of where we would have been if we would have gone a traditional approach. So if you remind them of the relative timing of what we were doing, they would always concede. SaaS is working. It works. Some things that we did to make it work better is we have redundant ISPs within our site, preferably coming in different locations so that nobody doing work outside destroys your connectivity. To date, we've had no downtime. And we've been running for a couple years now. So at some level or another, and no impact. So it is something you can manage. You do need a business continuity plan. But we fortunately have not had to put that in place, and there's no wood to touch. But maybe I'll call on the luck of the Irish. Site resources is, I think that's a common challenge for everybody. But, the fact that we upskilled those people, that made all the difference. Because they're the experts in the process. They can learn the technology if the technology's not too complicated. And that's worked out really well. And then in terms of the paper on glass, it's really, you need that balance, because you do need benefits, but you also don't want to lock them into constraints. And you start learning that in order to enforce GMPs, you need to get people to follow the rules and do things in the right sequence. So step enforcement was key for us. And I'll stop there.